Hello and welcome to my first YouTube video plastic model build kit. I'm hoping to change the contents of this box for this special hobby 1/72 scale Pinto TT1 into something looking like this. Okay, so in the way of instructions, all we have is a few pages, bit of info, bit of history, sprue details, cockpit, fuselage assembly, wing tailplane, undercarriage, final bits and bobs which you probably won't need for the build I'm going to do, and then this is the subject I'm going to do, and a few other choices you can do if you want, and that's it. So we'll just go straight on to looking at the sprues. Just a few, like I say, there's only a couple of sprues, so there's not a lot there, so it shouldn't be too difficult. And then putting that aside, just a little canopy. The only reservation I have at the moment, you probably can't see it, but just about there's a scuff going all the way around, so that'll have to be polished out. I don't want to do too much because I don't really want to damage it, but I can see where the problem is. And then from that, the last bit we got is the decal sheets, and like I said, the one I'm going to do is that one. So what we'll do, we'll crack on, shall we? Let's see how we go. Okay, well, there's something I have noticed on this sprue, and indeed the other one. There's no number tags on there, so you can't sort of like, when you look at your building instructions, yeah, it's obvious, you can see that, but it you know, the numbers itself are not there. They're actually on this. So if you're trying to locate or find your part, you just need to highlight those numbers so you can just go straight to them. But like I say, it's a small kit, so you can pretty much recognize everything you're looking at. But I have noticed a little sink hole in there. Well, I'll sort that one out in a little bit, and the rest of it, having a closer look, it's not too bad. There's not a lot of a bit of tidying up around the joysticks and stuff, but I think it's going to look quite good. I might put a little bit more detail on the seats, seat belts and a harness and stuff like that. May even put a little bit of indication of cushions in there. I've got a picture of the cockpit seat, albeit very vague. So anyway, I'll start cutting some. Large halves have got no locating pins, so what I did was cut a couple of or a few tabs along here so that I can, you know, just add them together just to stop them from flying all over the place while I'm trying to put them together. So that works okay. I've also tested the two tubs inside, so hopefully that won't be too bad when I've done. So, but that's fairly successful, and a little slip here so that the back end, when I fit that in, that will fit in where it should do. At the moment, it's just sliding all over the place, and I don't really want that. And just give me all sorts of hassle trying to get that located and put in the right place. So so that's where we are with that. I'll come back when I've got the paint done. Okay, so I've added all the base coats for the internals using Tamiya X2. So all that remains now for me to do is to paint the additional details. So I'll come back once I've finished that. Right, the tubs are done as best I can, quite fiddly. So now all I've got to do is fit it up with this side of the fuselage. The only thing is, it is quite fiddly, so I won't show this on film when I actually glue it all in place. So I'll come back in a minute when I've done that and see how we go. Okay, well, come up against a snag actually. What I've had to do is remove the pilot's seat in order to try and attempt to get this back end of the tub in. Problem I've found is that if I turn it this way, you'll see there's quite a gap just about there. So I've tried all sorts of ways of looking at this, and I think the only way that I'm going to get that to work properly for me when it comes to putting this side on is really use some epoxy glue, because there's also the issue of there's a gap here which I don't like. I'm going to have to get rid of that somehow. It doesn't fit very well, and unfortunately that's one of the reasons you're having these problems, because there's no locating lugs. So these lugs I put on earlier, they have helped, but when you put it on, unfortunately, when you look down here, it's not actually level. This bit here, you can tell, you can just see here. If you look at it closely, it's yeah, look at that, that's terrible. So the only way I can alleviate that is to add some epoxy on that one side and see if that can sort that out. Quite poor really, but you know, get around it. So I'll come back in a bit when I've sorted that. Well, in the end, I ended up taking both seats out so that I can get these two tubs in. And what I had to do was fill the back side of that with epoxy resin. The gap was too big really to use any normal glue, so I've got epoxy resin there, and I put a load in there and a bit in the front. Fortunately, I think that this particular model is not going to be a tail sitter, so I won't have to do any adjustments in there to add any extra weight. So here we are now. So the next thing for me to do is to connect this half and check for any defects and rectify them. So I'll come back when I've done that. Okay, there's the four pieces, so they just need cleaning up. So we'll just quickly knock off these tabs I've just trimmed down, and see I'm using 400 grit at the moment. I shall come down a little bit more in a minute, just testing, making sure, quite careful on how I take the lugs off. I never go right up close to the actual model itself. I'll give them a bit of a lighter sand in a minute to take these off. As of yet, I've not actually tested them against the fuselage, so but I have a feeling I may have an issue trying to fit these, because there's not really much to go on the side. There's a little lug, but I don't think that's going to do anything for us. I think I may have to come up with some sort of jig in the end. Clean that up in a minute. Okay, so I just need to remove these. You need to just be a bit careful with your fingers. I still think that's going to be an issue. Oh no, too bad, but I will get rid of that though. Looks an eyesore. Yeah, there you go. That one was still causing me an issue, so let's just take that down a bit more. But I also think, yeah, I can tell that one. Let's just get that. Doesn't need to be perfect, just need to get that still. Okay, yeah, that's much better. Right, okay, so I just need to tidy up, take that off, clean that up, but the rest of it's okay. So we'll do that. Well, I got the wings and the tailplanes done. They're all tidied up and smoothed down, ready for attaching. The next thing I've got to do is tidy up the fuselage. There's a lovely little gap there, a little bit of a step there, a major step there for some reason. So I've just got to tidy this up now. So I'll go ahead and get that done. And then I'll attach, once I've done that, I'll attach the wings and the tailplane, and I'll also maybe look at getting the seats in and the canopy on, maybe, depending on what situation I am with, or with the sanding and that. And then we'll just take the next step on from there, shall we? Thing I need to do after sanding all this down, there's still a bit more to do, but I think I'm going to leave that to Mr. Surfacer 500 to help fill that in a bit there and there. And then I've got to sand this green stuff down nice and smooth, and then obviously I'll respray that. The rest of the actual fuselage, I think I need to sort of go over some of the panel lines. They're very faint, and I don't think they'll stand out much once I've done some painting. I think they'll get filled in. So what I'll do is I'll dig in a little bit deeper, not too much, but a little bit deeper. But also, obviously, I need to put in the panel lines that I've just sanded out and then we'll take it from there. Okay, what I've done is I've scribed those panel lines that I think is safe to do. There are a few extras, but they're so awkward that I could probably do more damage to the fuselage than good. So what I've done is I've managed to sort of kind of do the larger areas and the areas that are accessible for my tools. The tools I use, I'm not sure. I would imagine many people use the scribing tool, but I do actually use this. It's pretty good. It does a good job. And then when I finish off with this, and I actually use this side, obviously not that side, but this side, and it drags out all the dirt. And then once I've done that, I give it a bit of a brush off, and then I use extra thin cement to cut it in, so you can see where it's cut in. You can see the shine. Well, that shine will go later because I shall give that a little bit of a wet and dry rub down, and then give it a good wipe down with some lint-free cloth, and that should be ready for taking the wings and everything else to get the paintwork done on it. So as you can see, it doesn't look too bad. I'm quite pleased with the outcome of that. I think it looked pretty good when it's done. So yeah, this is that's the next stage, and we'll go on to the next. Right, well, I thought just a quick process of how I scribe my models. I don't actually use a scriber. I actually use this. Can't see the point in buying a scribing tool when I've got something that does equally as good. But basically what I did was scribe along those faint lines. Sometimes it might come off a little bit, but I can tidy it up as I go. And then I used the back end rather than the blade to actually scribe across these. So I can't really do it on camera because I'm quite close up, but basically this back end, I'd start on the line and keep the angle of my blade at a good 45. If it's lower, it will go all over the place, so I keep it like that. And then I go along the line, and as an example, there's one already there. I'll go along the line and I will just scrape along. It looks a bit rough at the moment, but what I'll do is I'll rub that down with some wet and dry. So I've done that. I've actually done this one where I've just wet and dried, so I'm going to tidy it up again in a bit. And then these two pieces I've done as well. So what I'll do is I'll wet and dry these, and then I'll do some further cleaning up. So that's what we're going to do. I've sanded all the burrs off now, so you get a lot of dust in between these panel lines. What I'm going to do is lift it out. I'm not actually rescribing, I'm just lifting out this, as you can see. So you can see it's lifting it out. I'm going to go and do all of them all the way around, and then I'll come back in a second or so. Right, let's see if I can mask this up. I wanted to mask it while the canopy was in place, because I think it would be not difficult, but a mistake if I was trying to manhandle it. So we'll get some masking on. A nice sharp blade to use for this. Right, masking all complete. Masking fluid added. And I just gotta wait for it to dry now, and then I can carry on with some other bits and bobs. In the meantime, I'll do some other bits. Right, while I'm waiting for the canopy to dry, I'll look at some of this landing gear, give that a tidy up and a bit of detail, and then hopefully we can move on. Right, one thing to look out for here is I was attaching the wings, and they're hard work. All you have is a minute little lug sticking out from the wing on either side, and a really small recess. So you just need to be patient when you're gluing these up and making sure you get the dihedral right. It sits in fairly well, but yeah, bit of a pain. So the other thing to look out for as well, when you want to put these on, you're really going to need to clean these up, because when you put it on, you can see see the gap. That really does need a good clean up on both sides. Really does need a good clean up, and to make sure they fit flush. The other thing is, once the wings are on, it will need some filler there, and maybe a little bit in here and some around here. Definitely both sides will need doing. So that's the next step for that one anyway. Right, we have a gap along this joint and along that joint, and some here and some here and here and here. Just going to put a little bit of filler, try and tidy these up. I don't actually mind doing this sort of stuff, because it kind of makes you know that makes you feel that you are just doing that a little extra to make it a little bit more special of a build. In case you're wondering what top I've got there, it's actually a milk bottle top. Kind of save them and use them for painting and all sorts. So we're getting the rest of that done, and I'll come back in a bit. Right, it's ready for painting, but before I do, I'm going to give it a little bit of clean up with some alcohol cleaner. And what I'm using a lint-free cloth. It's slightly abrasive, but it's enough to be able to cut some grease off and get some dirt off all the surfaces. So we'll give everywhere where I can clean it a clean, and just to cut that grease off, and hopefully stop me from touching it with my hands. I'll have to use gloves. Give it just a bit of a deep grease, and we'll give it some primer. Hopefully I haven't missed any. That should do it. And then what we'll do, we'll sort of primer out on that. Right, well, this has had a coat of primer put on it, just one for the moment, and just have a close-up look to see if there's any imperfections. There's probably a few, so I'm going to try and tidy some of the bits up, and then we'll give it another coat of primer. We'll take it from there, using 250 grit with a sponge backing on, a bit of flexibility. So what I'm going to do is I'll go all over the airframe with this and check for any anomalies and rectify them, and see where I stand next with the primer and so on. See, it's already brought up a few. One there, little one there. Right, what's happening here is I've painted in some panel lines with some Winsor & Newton ink, but what I did before that was spray the model with Mr. Surfacer 1200, give that a light rubbing and dried that all up, and then I added a light coat of white primer before I put on the black panel lines. So what I'm going to do now is rub them down, and hopefully we should get a good result where all the panel lines are cut inside the panel lines that I cut earlier, and this should be a bit tidier then. So we'll go on with that, and I'll come back in a bit. Well, I just thought I'd show you this. This is the side that I painted with the ink, black ink, unsanded down, and this is the side sanded down. So I've done that and that and that and that, and you can see the effect is pretty good. So I'm hoping once I put the proper paint on, some of that will show through, and so obviously you can see that I haven't done this side, so you can see the difference. I'm quite impressed at the moment. I didn't think it would work that well, but I suppose the proof's in the pudding when I finish it, and we'll see if I've made a mistake or not. So let's crack on. Right, I've added several light coats of white, Tamiya X2, and as you can see, you can tell the panel lines are starting to fade into the distance. So what I'll do here is I'll let that dry for 12 hours or so I can come back and do a bit of wet and dry sanding on that before I put a couple more coats on that. Okay, so here I am now. I'm just sanding down, giving a light sand down with 2500 grit on the wings and the fuselage and everything. So what I'm going to do is give it a nice rub down all over, get that nice and smooth, get any of the imperfections off, and then I'll come back with the finished paintwork on it, and then we can go to the next stage from there. So I'll catch you in a short while. Right, so I've cut out all the bits I need for the putting the decals on. As you can see, they're all there. I'll just show you a few things that I use. I use Micro Set and Micro Sol. Two of my favourites. One of the others that I actually like is I do like this. The only problem with this is it's a bit harsh on some of your paints. So when you do use this, you have to be really careful, try not getting it on the paint. So if I do need it for this, I'm hoping not, but if I do, I've really got to be careful. And then obviously I've got my trusted cotton wool pad pods, my knife, and a bit of tissue paper. So this is what I'm going to use to apply my decals. So we'll get cracking. Right, what I did here was add a couple of decals on before I went to camera. I had a bit of a problem. They're quite brittle, they're quite weak. They snapped and cracked a little bit. So I thought I'll show. Hopefully, I'll do a bit now. I put a piece on to show you how I do it. But I can't promise you that it's going to look good if they decide to crack on me. So first of all, what I'll do is I'm going to do the Navy name on the side. Just see if I can do both of them, and see how we go. Like I say, they're quite brittle, so just dip them in the water. The water is just clean, clear water, nothing special. Doesn't have to be hot or anything like that, as far as I'm concerned anyway. Some people like it to be warm and stuff like that, but by the time you've put warm in a tub or a jar or something, it'll end up being cold anyway. So I'm going to use my Micro Set, this stuff. I quite like this stuff. And just going to put a bit of Micro Set, a few blobs, because it doesn't seem to sit smoothly. It just blobs on there. So I'm going to do that there, as you can see there. And then I'm going to take some of the water away from that. And then, yep, there we go. So I'm a bit concerned. Maybe using this cocktail stick is one of the reasons why it's been cracky. Ooh, see, look. So be very careful. So I got a feeling I may have to play around with the brush on this one. So let's just get it at where I think it should be. It's not going to do. I'm going to have to try and pull that back a bit. Out there. Yeah. Right. So we'll spare that down a bit. I'll be honest with you, I was quite nervous about that. I'm glad it didn't break. So I'll just do the one on camera, and then I'll do the rest. I have a feeling I'm going to have some trying times with this. Already I can see it. So I'll come back when it's done. Okay, so I've got all the decals on that need to be on there. Like I said earlier, they were slightly problematic. You have to be really careful not to manhandle them too much. As you can see, just there. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of touch-up work on that one there. And also, because they're so fragile, you have to be careful how to handle these things. But so that's on now. They're all on now. That's all I need to do. So I'm going to give that a coat of varnish, and then I'm going to put the undercarriage on, and take off the masking, and that really is, as far as I'm concerned, is finished. Okay, so here we are, the finished item. All I did was, before I got to this point, is make sure that the undercarriage was securely fixed. Left the masking on while I obviously sprayed. So give it a nice coat of gloss. And the gloss that I used was Vallejo polyurethane varnish. Really nice varnish this, and it does mix well with Tamiya X20A, a 50-50 mix. It does a really good finish with the gloss. And any items that didn't need any gloss, I used the Vallejo polyurethane matte varnish. These two products are they're lovely products. They do work well. And also VMS varnish, another product that I've recently come about, and I've used that on one of my latest projects, bigger project than this one. So they are nice. So yes, here we are. Nice little kit. Not recommended for a beginner. Definitely, a beginner I think would end up tossing it out the window on the very first sort of few stages. Added a little bit of detail, not much, but I think it's scrubbed up really well, and I'm really pleased that I picked the decal set on this. I do think that I may have had a major issue trying to apply these decals. And the reason being is they're so fragile. They did actually split and break on me, so I had a devil of a time to make sure that I didn't have too much damage. Managed that, so I think the finish with them is quite good. But like I say, I wouldn't, if you're a beginner, I wouldn't go out and buy this kit. Wait until you've got a few models under your belt before you sort of scratch on with one of these. But I think it's really nice. It's a nice looking little kit, nice looking plane. Never really heard of it before. I found this kit at a model show, a local model show that I go to in Birmingham. It was the Blue Lamp model show, and some little stores and that. And I found a few unusual kits, the sort of models that you wouldn't normally go in a shop and buy. I'll give you an example, like this one. This might be my next project, and I've not really had a proper look at it, but some of the bits in there look a bit dodgy, so this might be another project which I can perhaps show at a later date with a good finish in that. So, like I say, this, really pleased with the finish. So I'll leave you with it. If you like, just give us a like if you like what you saw. If you don't, make your comments but I'll just leave a few pictures at the end for you to sort of look as you're going around. So hopefully you like what you saw, and I'll see you in the next one at a later date. So bye bye for now.